Because the last 15 minutes of shooting, which was like, it wasn't a long shoot, you know, it was maybe an hour, you know, the last 15 minutes, all the batteries were just toast. And so the audio wasn't not there. It was just destroyed.
Just horrible.
Oh yeah. It was just like, no, I had to quit and was leaving, but they reached out. They were like, Jesse, what the fuck, dude? I'm like, I'm so sorry. I actually didn't know. You know, I was a kid, you know, I learned my lesson, but I was like, I felt really bad.
We all have those moments of like, you go through that trial by fire and you
Absolutely.
either like sail off into the sunset or you just crash and burn into a pile of wonderful flames. So
I definitely I didn't really do either.
like I'm actually just kind of still paddling around.
Still
like,
just going. I'm out here forgetting batteries all the time. So this is sponsored by Celsius and
thank you. Poppy.
We have
Logos
Poppy.
out.
Logos out. Do you want me not drinking this during the episode?
No, you can totally drink it.
Okay.
I don't. I would rather have the articulate like brain 100% than lose out on a Celsius sponsorship. We'll get there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with the rate at which this show has kind of gone from like 0 to just trying to get it off the ground is like, I'm probably going to start buying 100 packs of Celsius just to keep things going.
Just to keep going.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know where I'd be without Celsius. It's I don't put a lot of things in my body. I definitely put this in my body.
Yeah.
A lot. So
it was kind of an interesting thing. This actually came up on the episode yesterday, was just talking about like the idea of having to put in that extra effort through like a short temporary amount of time.
Yeah.
And kind of something I actually wanted to hit on as a like introductory topic before we get into all of the crazy stuff that I know you've done.
Yeah.
Coming from a background in the music world and then transitioning into health, the music production artistic world is pretty well known for just running yourself into the ground.
Oh yeah.
How have you kind of seen like the transition in like your earlier career of like going down that path and then being able to realize before it was like way too late to go, oh, actually, like, no, I should probably take care of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we officially starting?
We've been rolling for a couple minutes.
We are rolling. Okay. Amazing. Wonderful. This is actually such a good question because it is like the densest part of my story when it comes to like change, I guess, and when it comes to like wisdom and pain, you know, because there's I got my first big opportunity in music when I was in my early 20s, you know, and I was producing music, you know, probably 14 hours a day, 6 days a week kind of thing. I was just in the studio.
Insane. Yeah.
You know, I was a kid though. I was 21. So I had all this energy. But I also I didn't know very much, you know, so I just worked and I went and I was so excited. And not only that, I put everything I had into it. So it was just like, oh, they're like, oh, we need a little song for like, you know, a 20 spot for this thing. And I'm like, it's going to be my magnum opus, you know?
I know that feeling.
Oh, like, God bless that energy. Like, that is a precious energy. Now when I meet young creatives and I see that in them, I'm like, hey, protect that.
Yes.
If you get a job, don't let them burn you out.
Yes.
Quit before you burn out. Like,
100%.
Protect that. So I did not have anybody really saying that to me. No, actually, it was I more so had people encouraging me in the other direction because I was making them money, you know?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
And I got to the point where I had bed sores and I had lost 50 pounds. I was like skin and bone. And that comes from also inherently everything that comes with being an artist. You know, I was dealing with emotional health issues. I was dealing with some mental health issues, and I ran myself completely flat, you know, and I started drinking a lot, and it got to the point where a few years later, it's funny. I talk about this frequently in conversations, but I just had a very powerful moment in my life where I needed to get sober, you know, and 100%. But it was a cute moment. It was a rock bottom, you know, yeah. But it was, have you seen the movie Hook with Robin Williams? Of course.
Amazing.
There's the moment where the little kid grabs Robin Williams' face and he goes, "There you are, Peter." And he like sees himself. You know, I have this friend, great friend of mine, Calvin. He had introduced me to this practice, mirror talk, you know, and this was when we were like 25, you know. He's like, "Dude, sometimes I just see myself in the mirror and I've got to be like, hey man," and like give yourself a pep talk, you know?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And I was trying to quit drinking early New Year's 2016, you know, it was my resolution. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try to quit drinking. And I biffed it, you know?
I mean, around New Year's, I would say that's arguably the hardest time of the year to quit.
I was right.
You got everyone like, hey, you should come out to this party. And then 10 parties deep, you're like,
totally.
Well, maybe we'll start next year.
Yeah. It was definitely one of those things where I was like, well, I fell off the horse, but that's such a big part of the lesson that came with this was, you know, I had this moment after I woke up hungover again kind of thing, you know, and, I saw myself in the mirror and I was like, I just had this moment where I was like, oh my God. I looked at myself in the eyes. I was like, that's Jesse. That's the guy who has, you know, every time he's heard, you know, a song he loves, he just lights up. Every time somebody has said, I love you, every time I've held hands with a lover, or every time my family has said, that's my son, that's my brother, it's been me, you know? And I was like, whoa, that's this. I'm like in the mirror, just having this moment with myself where I was like, oh man, I love being alive. I do. Actually,
that's huge.
And I love me. I actually love getting to be me. I love the way that I hear music. I love the way that I, you know, see sunsets. I love the way that I am such a big fan of all my friends, you know, and then that came up and I was like, oh, you know what? I treat my friends with so much patience and grace and forgiveness. I don't give myself any of that. And I was like, holy crap. So I had this big, there you are, Peter moment. I immediately quit drinking. And, from there, one thing they don't tell you about getting sober is your social life completely changes, right?
Oh,
so yeah. So I'm all of a sudden, instead of going out at night, I'm waking up early in the morning and kind of scratching my head like, what do I do with all this energy? What do I do with all this time?
Hey, do you want to grab coffee? Oh, you're hungover.
Yeah,
we'll talk later.
It was kind of like this whole it was a major rediscovery. It's a very active time period.
Definitely.
You know, you look at people talking about habit building. Like you can't change everything all at once. You got to do it for a period till it becomes passive, and then you have the strength or the availability to actively pick up something new. So I just started with changing my diet. I woke up and I was like, okay, I went gluten, dairy, caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol free. All just out the gate.
Cold turkey.
That was cold turkey.
That's the only way to do it, in my opinion.
That was weaning off is just a long goodbye, baby. You know, sometimes you just gotta cut the limb. You know.
Yeah.
So I started making smoothies every morning to kind of keep myself occupied, and also one of the things was people want to see a behavioral change in themselves.
Yes.
And it's like, what about a behavioral like redressing or a recontextualizing? Because if you're an intense person, you know, like, or you're a deep feeling person, or you hyperfixate, et cetera, so many people, when that's taken them down a path that's hurt them, oftentimes they want to punish that part of themselves. And it's like, no, don't punish that part of yourself. Make it a superpower, you know?
There's a huge benefit to having that sort of a drive. And that's something that has like come up in a lot of conversations for me and the people I talk with is like this reality that and sounds like you have this similar intrinsic motivation where you're like, you see yourself in the mirror, go, I love who I am. And because I do, I want to change how I'm doing things.
Yeah.
And similarly for me, seeing those moments where it's like, oh, actually, like, I'm not where I want to be in life right now. And granted, like, I'm the only one that can take responsibility for that. And once you kind of have that moment of like responsibility awareness, and then you can take all of that energy that you were putting into just casually trying to enjoy everything about what life has been told to be.
Yeah.
Now you can put that into like actually taking care of yourself. And then I'm sure you probably can speak to this a little bit better, but it's like the feelings that you have once you like take care of yourself, you go to the gym, like you start doing all these things. And then like, I mean, I always tell people like, if you could have a really good night's sleep, and not to spoil it for people, but most people are probably not getting a good night's sleep. Like if we're being honest, like I know people all the time, they're like, yeah, no, I sleep well. And I'm like, great. How long does it take you to get out of the bed in the morning?
Yeah, right.
Because I wake up at 6 a.m, ready to fucking go.
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
That feeling,
yeah,
if you've never experienced that, try it. And I promise you, everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very true. Oh man, I could talk about sleep for a while, you know? Yeah. And that's, so what you're saying about like, oh man, that's the hard part to convince people of is the hard work.
Yes.
You know, but like one of my favorite things, so this huge change in me, starting with my diet, you know, making smoothies, and then a few months later, once that was kind of just dialed in, you know, I was like, cool, I'm gonna go to the gym, you know. And I drove to the gym, had an anxiety attack in the parking lot. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm so nervous. I leave, I go home, immediately get online, and I'm looking at like forum boards, like first time at the gym, I'm nervous. And I'm watching YouTube videos, I'm reading things. Thank God for the people that made this content, because because I feel like a lot of people that are gym goers aren't necessarily thinking about that, where they're just like, no, how am I going to get, get a great workout? And it's like, what about if you're just afraid to even go in the building? I'm gonna make content for that. So to the creators that made that stuff, thank you. It does help people.
Yes.
So I watched some of this and I was like, okay. And I adopted just a really simple workout, and I went back 3 times a week, just light,
just
easy,
get started somewhere,
just to get comfortable, and it was like putting my toes in the water. And then the very first time I went to the gym, I was doing this little like exercise where I'm laying down on a bench. This huge dude with a mohawk walks by and he farts on my head. And it was like something out of a movie or like a comic. I was like, and it was immediately like, well, that's the worst thing that could happen. And it did. And it's my first time here. Yeah. So I was like, from here, it's up, baby. And I continuously was during that time period revisiting my why. And I was so proud of myself for just being there.
100%. Yeah.
I was like, I'm not here to get jacked. I'm not here to get ripped. I'm here to take care of myself because I am getting sober. And that's huge. That is a win. Just being there. I was like, yeah, buddy. I was such a
we did it.
I was like a little cheerleader for myself in there. I was so cute. I'm like, my shirts are a little too tight because I was drinking a lot. I put on some extra weight that my clothes didn't fit like they did, but I was in there just like, I'm glad you're here, bud. It was cute.
I think that's like a huge thing. And you're hitting on a subject that I think more people, if you kind of understand, it's like, you don't have to set a world record deadlift to celebrate yourself.
Absolutely not.
Like celebrating yourself is literally like, okay, great. I did 10 reps with 10 pounds. Mm-hmm. A lot of gym goers, most people have to realize if you've been going to the gym for a really long time, you're going to be celebrating that person just as much as your friend who's like setting world record deadlifts.
Absolutely.
Like that's the thing that I wish more people understood. Like if there's a asshole in the gym that's like shitting on people for effort, like they've got something else they got to look in the mirror and figure out.
Of course.
But yeah, like being able to celebrate yourself, like that just I think that needs to be more common culture.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a calming of your anima and your animus, the inner voice there.
Exactly.
It's just like calming down any type of critic or conviction or anything like that that's in there saying like, yeah, well, it's like, we're getting there, It's like the wise old oak didn't just spring up overnight,
100%.
Like let me enjoy the process, So yeah, I mean, with that, but going back to like, that's the hardest part to convince people of.
If, like me, you hate ad breaks and podcasts, well, we're going to keep this one straight and to the point. If you need any production help, feel free to hit me up at brandongoodyear.com. Let's get back into the episode.
Is putting in that hard work to see the benefit later.
Yes.
Oh man, it's because it hurts, I mean, strength training is literally resistance training. You're training through resistance, but then all of a sudden you have strength, and it takes care of your body in such a beautiful way. And that's just applicable everywhere. You have to push through this resistance, and then all of a sudden you are gifted with just a stronger reality.
Yeah. I mean, I had a moment. I was doing my workouts, and for the most part, I kind of just like figured out as I go, because I truly I'm able to trust my intuition that I'm going to do the thing that is right for me. And then every once in a while I'll like talk with a friend, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing every day. And they're like, okay, great. Well, I'm working on your body, and I can tell you're completely fucked up. So let's like have a conversation about this.
Yeah.
Here's what I need you to focus on. And one of my friends did this for me the other day. And I went from doing my rows with my 72-pound kettlebells, because I'm trying to like get jacked.
Yeah.
And then I switched back down to my 35s, cut the weight in half, focused on the form. I started feeling muscles I didn't know existed.
Totally.
And all of a sudden was like, wait a second. And now I'm like seeing like all these results. And I'm like, oh, actually having that intention on the form and the details is huge. And so now I'm like, okay, let's dial the way back for temporarily. And over the next like couple weeks, that's like all I'm focused on is like the technique and the details. And I'm hoping that by the end of this couple of weeks, I'll be right back up to the 72s and I'll feel great. But I'm like doing it the way I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
But it's the improvements that I've seen by doing that resistance training. I just texted my dad earlier today. I'm like, you got to deadlift. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, let's take care of your health, do this. And for me, that's been the thing that's shown me the biggest improvements, is building that strength. And I think like, obviously I'm also seeing the like levels of aggression, all the other things that come with that strength. But it's like, if you understand how that can help mentally and all the other things, you don't have to just like, go full roid rage.
Right.
You can just be in that moment of power and know that you can use that appropriately to do the things that you want to do at a better cadence.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, you just touched on this a little bit, but like when you start to see that discipline in a physical sense, it leaks into everything. It leaks into how you work. It leaks into how you speak. It turns into how you hold yourself and how you hold others and everything. It's just like, 100%. It was probably changing my relationship with movement was fundamentally the most life-changing thing I've ever done. So becoming an alcoholic and hitting rock bottom is the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And in the sense that like it gave me a relationship with my body, with my breath, that turned into meditation. It turned into patient, like this relationship with myself, right? This patience and grace and forgiveness. And it just gave me just this abundant gift of all of that. It's just who I am now. And
100%.
I'm so glad that, like I was talking about, how much I worked that led me to that darkness. I'm so glad I never was. I'm so glad my career never took off or anything like that.
Yeah.
Before that change,
Yes.
It was like I would have never become the person who had to go trial by fire, kind of thing. So
I think about that a lot, because I think, we're probably in like a similar camp, and I know we're roughly the same age, but like having that time in your early 20s when you're just like, it's like the rise of the beginning of the social media influencer and all of the attention and chaos that comes with that. And you're just watching these like 18-year-olds getting the, Beverly Hills house and the Ferrari, like all the things.
That's what I worked in.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, you got to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
But like,
oh my gosh.
Like there's a part of me that was like, oh, I want that thing.
Yeah.
And now that I'm, getting into my 30s, I'm like, oh, actually, like, that was a really good thing that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is I'm watching people around me where that maturity level stops.
Yeah.
In their 20s. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that now my like career is starting to kind of hit that like acceleration point in my 30s because I have a level of maturity that can take it appropriately. Something I actually was like really curious about for you is kind of transitioning from, alcoholic lifestyle, going to get healthy in that like 2016, 2017 timeframe.
Yeah.
And through the past however many years, how have you been able to navigate not getting caught up? I mean, obviously there's all of the biohacking health trend nonsense craziness. How are you able to discern, kind of like fact from fiction and like, the things that will actually help you, but also like staying connected in nature and like those balances?
Oh, that's a fascinating question.
It's a multifaceted question.
Yeah,
so whatever hits
absolutely.
first.
Absolutely. I think there's a theme in the idea of patience, you know, and really, and obviously like observation of what works for you, like you were just talking about sleep.
Yeah.
And I was a big blackout curtain guy for a while.
Dude,
They're
love
great.
them. Yeah.
I haven't had them at this home that I'm in now.
Okay.
But I recently got a Manta sleep mask, and it is like I've been complaining about my sleep for a little over a year. And we'll get to that later, I'm sure. A friend of mine gifted me a Manta sleep mask, and they were like, "Hey, use this for meditation, and whatever, And I was like, "Cool." And I put it on that night, and I slept the best I have slept in over a year. Yeah. I was out like a light. I slept all the way through the night, and I woke up, and I was like, woke up, and I was like, "Where am I?" And I was like, "Wait a minute." And I took the thing off, and it was like beautiful sunny day, and I was like, there was this much light in my room, and I thought it was just pitch black, because they're like they're cups, and they sit over your eyes. So that being said, sleep is incredibly important, and light is incredibly important. Relationship with light is incredibly important. And it's really interesting what, never mind. I was going to go down a whole rabbit hole of like who you are in the sun versus who you are in the moon, and what I've witnessed in myself creatively in that way. But coming into, health and biohacking versus like what works, what doesn't work. What I've felt in myself, one of the big things that is patience and trying out all sorts of stuff. I used to be 100%. Way into biohacking. I used to when I was like 28, I was like every day listening to like Ben Greenfield and all those guys. Yeah. I was like all that. I was like, oh, I got to get this freaking supplement, and I have to take it at 11 a.m. And then 2 hours later, I got to put this in my butt. And it's just like, it's just like whatever,
Yeah.
And
you got to try it all.
I got to drink my piss, or I don't know.
Wait, not quite that far.
Yeah. So Dave Asprey was talking about like urine injection stuff a while ago. I was like, I'm glad I'm glad I'm not on this train anymore. It's all good. Now you have is it Brian Johnson?
Yeah.
Is he the guy who wants to live forever or whatever? And it's like, he just, whatever. Anyways.
It's all the things. This actually came up just yesterday, was the idea of trying to search for the external thing to solve what actually is an internal problem. And I resonate with that so hard because frankly, I'm still kind of like dialed in on supplements, but something I have to be like really conscious of is like the way that it directly affects what I'm doing. I still love and take a lot of the different mushroom supplements, lion's mane, chaga, like all that stuff, like arguably has been some of the best things for sleep, cognitive health, just not getting sick.
Do you have a brand you love?
I have been a huge fan of the company Paul Stamets
Oh yeah,
does,
of
and I
course.
completely forget what the name of it is.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
his stuff has been
Paul
amazing.
Wall. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Also, Four Sigmatic has been the consistent.
Yeah.
But the big thing for me is just kind of like, to your point, like getting back to what nature has. You know, obviously it's winter in Ohio, so trying to go outside when it's 2 degrees outside is basically impossible. But for me, during, you know, the warmer months of the year, making sure I'm outside, I'm grounding
Yes.
every single day, doing all the things I can there, making sure I'm actually eating 3 meals a day. That's like been a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
And I've realized that a lot of the things I was trying to supplement away aren't as necessary as I thought they were. Which I'm sure you probably are in a similar boat.
Yeah, you know when there's so many things in the biohacking space and the supplemental space that are like, my roommate says this, and it's trying to major in the minors.
Yes.
You know, and it's like, you know, the thing you're trying to address is really just the flowering part of a deeper problem. And you could address this with some sunlight.
Yeah.
You could address this with a diet change.
Oh, 100%.
You know, and I mean, you know, probably more than most people about how important diet is.
Yeah.
You know,
it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that actually was like a really crazy thing for me. And it's funny because, like, you know, I'm kind of one of those people that, at least on its face, can understand that the 2 extremes of the spectrum, carnivore and vegan, are at best an elimination diet.
So yes, absolutely.
I've
That's how I
literally
see
known
them.
people that have done it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I had to go on this elimination diet. I literally drank bone broth and rice for a month.
Sounds great.
And I was like, honestly, it sounds phenomenal. Probably would be okay.
Yeah.
And it's honestly like relatively close to kind of what I do on a general daily basis.
Yeah.
But like, to understand that that's the extremes of it.
Yeah.
But the fact that I see all these people going through all these things and they're just like, no, this is the way to do it. Or this is the way. I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, what are, like, I mean, granted, like a lot of my knowledge and counter arguments with people tends to be arguing against the vegan side of things. And that's only because I have a lot of friends that I love dearly, and we have a lot of these deep conversations about it. And the big thing for me, and this kind of ties into the supplemental side of things, and that's actually a big criticism. If I have any criticisms of Brian Johnson, it's that he's able to do what he does because he's literally spending millions of dollars a year.
Of course.
And if you see his supplementation stack, it's like, yeah, he can just eat his nutty pudding and whatever because he's supplementing with all the other shit.
Yeah.
And every single thing that I've like talked to people, I'm like, hey, if you want to do this, these are the things you have to be aware of. And if you want to like try and give me the breakdown as to why you can do this, like great, but you still need to address these things regardless of how you feel about everything else. And so, but kind of to try and tie it all back into nature, it's like, I always kind of think of it from the standpoint of, if you go back several hundred years to before we had the, you know, grocery store and our current food system that we have, how are these people living? What are the common things that are actually like killing people? Disease was a big problem, but the reality is most people were starving to death, dying in cold, heat, whatever it was, elemental things. And so now it's like, in this modern world, we've solved a lot of these issues with the grocery store. But now that shit's
we've just created new issues.
We've created new issues because now that shit's poisoning us.
Yes.
So kind of like helping people kind of discern what they can do there. And I think like a big thing to, I guess, better tie it back into what we were saying earlier about, you have to dive into the hard work, is being willing to like do those things for yourself.
Yeah.
I think about it a lot when I moved to Ohio. A big, like the first thing I did, like I didn't have the ability to go out and eat food with my friends all the time.
Yeah.
So I would literally drive around to like 5 different grocery stores so that I could like afford to eat for the week, go into like Aldi, Lucky's, Whole Foods, kind of getting what I could wear. Actually, when I discovered Aldi, I remember texting at the time, my girlfriend. I was like, dude, I literally just bought a whole week's worth of food for $20. Like, what the fuck? This is insane.
Yeah, Aldi's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And if you're like on a budget, great place to
100%.
go.
Absolutely.
But I also like knew in my mind that I was going to have to like take care of myself in that way, because, I only bought cereal literally the day I was moving out of my first house, because I was like, I just need to like pack all my shit up and go, and I can't be thinking about food. But having that mentality of like, I can cook for myself, I can do all these things, like it's not that scary, even though I've literally never cooked a meal in my life. I don't know, that was kind of all over the place, but
yeah. That's just to tag on to that, cooking is probably one of the greatest skills that you could invest in, is
100%.
learning how to, just basics, learn how to cook the basics. Wow. Do it. It's that was one of my things. Yeah. When I moved to California in my early 20s, and I was producing music all the time, I didn't know how to cook.
Yeah.
So I was figuring it out. I came up with some great recipes by not knowing anything,
What was your favorite?
Oh man, I have this guacamole I make for parties. I used to call it like moonlight guacamole or something like that. And it is the most random ingredients. It's like honey and rosemary and thyme and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's delicious. It's so good. When I was like, I moved from Ohio to California. This was before avocado toast was a thing, and I was like, avocados, what are these? I was like, oh, this is guacamole. I was like, I could do that. I was like, every grocery store had avocados, for cheap. And I was like, so I'd buy a ton and try all sorts of stuff. I put like vanilla extract in there, blueberries, pistachios. I was trying all sorts of stuff because I was homeschooled.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. Yes. But then, I was like, I don't know what's actually in guacamole. So I'm just like throwing whatever in with the avocado and calling it guacamole.
Yeah.
But anyways, learning how to cook is a thing. So, it's really interesting. Yeah. Going back to, again, this theme of like, what works for you, and that comes with patience and listening.
Yes.
Those are two. Also cooking, learning how to be patient, learning how to listen to yourself, and determining the different voices within yourself, because your heart's going to be speaking differently than your mind. It's going to be speaking differently than your gut, And then even going back to what we were talking about, with success in your 20s and stuff like that, and how, for like in our example, talking about how you've seen people hit a certain threshold because of experiencing success in their 20s. I don't think that's necessarily true for everybody. I think there's some people that when they're given an opportunity and it goes well, they do great with it,
Yeah.
So and then with whether you're doing vegan or carnivore diets, again, just like, it comes back to that listening. You're like, is this good for me? And then obviously there's people that do veganism for ethical reasons, which I totally respect. But yeah, like, I think the biggest things that I have seen through this, like, patience and listening, the sauna. Like, always come back to people like, my brother recently got mad at me. He's like, he was not doing too well. And I was like, you should get in the sauna. And he's like, that's bad advice. I was like, that's great advice. I was like, have you been in a sauna, man? And it's like, a lot of people, when they think sauna, they're like, oh, it's expensive. It's like, I've got a $10 gym across the street with a sauna that I use all the time. And it's great. It's $10 a month. And, man, nothing and this particularly comes into my mental health, not just through the winter, but just all year round. The saunaing has been one of the biggest things that I have seen for me benefit my mental health, benefit my physical health, and everything. So
one of my clients this year had a sauna that I got to use every time I was out working with them, and it was an absolute game changer.
Yeah,
we would go out to dinner. I would get the sauna heated up. We would come back. It'd be like 8-9 o'clock at night. Hop in the sauna for like 20 minutes, 185. And then like I would have the best sleep of my life just immediately right after. And it was like doing that all the time. I'm like trying to like put together plans to build one in my backyard, because I'm like, I need this like right there available all the time. But yeah, I think like that's definitely one of those like potentially out there modalities. But I think to your point, like, you don't have to go to the extremely fancy sauna, cold plunge specific place.
Yeah.
There's probably a gym within your area that has something that'll do everything you need for it.
Absolutely.
And like, as I always like to say, like, the hard thing about like a gym membership is literally not the cost of the gym membership, but just showing up and doing the things you need to do.
Of course. Yeah. And as soon as you start doing those things, you realize how worth it is to pay that price.
100%.
You're like, oh, this is $30 a month. And it's like $30 a month. You're like, until you use it multiple times a week. And you're like, oh, this breaks down to like, a few bucks every time I'm here.
Literally, I spend more in coffee every month. Like
realistically.
Easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's crazy.
Yeah, man. One of the other big things that's like, so we keep using the word diet, and people have a certain relationship with the word diet because when they think diet, hopefully their head doesn't immediately go to this thing, but they're thinking, keto or I don't even remember what any of the other, there's so many fad diets.
Keto, paleo, Atkins.
Yeah, all these things.
Slim Fast.
Yeah, or
Weight
like
Watchers.
like Whole 30, all this stuff, which I'm just referring to what you're eating every day.
100%.
Not like a diet over a time period, but like a lifestyle where it's just like, oh, I try to avoid dairy upsets my stomach. I try to avoid dairy, coffee, caffeine, wigs me out. Unfortunately, I love coffee so much, but oh my God, when I was 22, I drank 4 shots of espresso one morning, and that night I wrote the saddest song of my entire life. And I finally realized it. I was like, oh my gosh, when I have coffee caffeine, I get brutally depressed.
That's very strange.
My crash is so like, I can only describe it through poetry. Like, it's horrific. It is dark, dude. I don't know. And it's funny to say, but it sucks.
That's unfortunate.
I go through periods where I'm like, oh, I'll have a little coffee. And then that night I'm like looking out the window going, I think this is it.
I don't know what to do.
Nobody loves me. And then I'm like, I have coffee today. I'm like, I did. Shit. Tea doesn't do it to me. Yerba mate doesn't do it to me. Celsius doesn't do it to me.
That's
just
insane.
Coffee. It's crazy.
I wonder. So my wife is allergic to coffee.
Oh.
And I'm wondering if there's some sort of like low level allergy or something that might be the case.
I would love to talk to her about that.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool.
It's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Oh, it sucks.
Yeah. So one thing that I like kind of how you hit on that, where it's like, a lot of people have a negative connotation with dieting and the whole culture around it.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, the biggest thing I always come back to is like, I would say roughly like 2018, 2019, there was this big intuitive eating movement. I'm a huge proponent of intuitive eating.
Yeah.
With the extremely large asterisks.
It's like, don't take this yes, keep going.
You have to understand.
Yeah.
There's a literal multi-trillion-dollar industry of scientists that are smarter than you and me.
Yeah.
And that have a budget more than God.
Yeah.
To specifically engineer foods to hijack every single sense and urge in your body. Mm-hmm. And the thing that really, like, it blew my mind. This is like, I wouldn't say like TMI, but like getting into like, when you get married, they don't teach you about how women's bodies work.
Yeah.
And so understanding that if your wife is craving chocolate, 99% of the time,
it means XYZ.
It means magnesium.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's a magnesium deficiency.
Totally. Yeah.
And so you start diving down the rabbit hole. And I actually like the weird full circle moment for me was like when I was a kid, every single time I would get sick, and my mom can verify this, the only food I would ask for is steamed cabbage with salt and pepper.
Interesting.
And I would literally fucking pound an entire head of cabbage in a day.
Yeah.
Fast forward literally 2 years ago, I'm like looking up, I'm like, because I was talking with my mom about it. I was like, let me just figure this out. Turns out cabbage, extremely high in vitamin C and quercetin. What are the 2 things that'll help you get over a cold really fast?
Yeah.
Vitamin C and quercetin.
Yeah.
I was like, your body literally will know exactly what it is you need.
Absolutely.
If you find yourself, you're like, oh, I'm craving coffee. It's like, okay, you've got energy, but also you're probably like burning out your adrenals or something. So you actually probably should drink a little bit of like salt water in the morning. But it's like, there's all these things that it's like, if you learn the like natural thing that your body's craving, you'll find you can solve a lot of those problems very, very quickly.
100%, man. That is so real. I like to think of it as like answering your body's prayers.
Oh, 100%.
You know,
yeah.
it's like the organisms in your body are like praying for cabbage. They're like, this is what we need, please. And you're like, I will gift you with cabbage.
I will grant this to
I will grant you cabbage because I know you will do good with it. It is fascinating what the it is hysterical to me how much weight we give like kind of the spotlight consciousness versus the intelligence of the body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's just like our bodies are brilliant. My body
It's insane.
will turn food into more of my body, you know? I don't know how to do that,
Yeah.
but my body does, you know?
Yeah.
I just get to ride around in this thing with my senses, and I'm up here just having a good time, and I think about things, usually like a few things at a time, maybe hopefully one, not very often. It's usually like many things just kind of going on up there, but and yet the brilliance of the body will tell you, I need cabbage. And all you have to do is just listen. And if it's probably not going to hurt you. You know?
Yeah.
And there's so many things like that. There's so many things like that that are just, you know, it's the voice of intuition, you know. It's fascinating. And this is so in my category of where I exist because you know, that specifically relates to your body and your body's health.
Yes.
But I mean, that voice is so sensitive and susceptible to energies and things beyond where, you know, you'll get the sudden urge to like, I don't know, I'm going to go down this alleyway, and you go down that alleyway and you end up finding, you know, something that changes your life, you know?
Oh,
And you're
100%,
just like,
yeah.
you're like, oh, my intuition doesn't just know how to, you know, translate the need for cabbage, but it knows how to direct me in my life. You know, it knows how to orchestrate me into the most beautiful opportunity of what's best for me. You know, it knows what's best for me.
It took me a very, very long time to be able to trust my intuition. And this is honestly, I don't think I've ever told this story really online at all. And I've only told it in a couple forums.
Yeah.
But the thing that really like kind of snapped me out of like not trusting my gut was, I forget the year of the Boston Marathon bombing.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was like 2015,
It's a while ago.
2016, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, regardless of the time, the rough timing on it, at the time I was actually running marathons a lot. And I was very quickly getting my like time to like come down.
Wow.
That year that I think I had run like 3 races throughout the year, and the next race I was working on like getting my time like down to the qualifying time to qualify for Boston.
Yeah.
I would have qualified for the race, and I would have been crossing the finish line at the exact time
That it went
roughly
off.
that it went off.
Yeah.
Not to bury the lead, I didn't qualify for Boston, and I
Yeah.
wasn't there, and I saw the news online, but I like very quickly was able to kind of do the math on it and go, oh shit,
Yeah.
there's a bigger reason that I, you know, stopped putting in the training or did all the things I did. And then from that moment was like, oh, I think this is actually something I probably should pay attention to, because every time I have that intuitive thought of this is the thing I'm going to go do or the direction I need to go, literally the past couple jobs I've taken, I've literally decided to make this monumental leap in 2 minutes
Yeah.
because I know that everything's going to work out.
Yeah. Yeah. There's that voice there. Oof, man.
That voice gets really strong.
It gets strong. There's also imposter voices, you know.
I mean, yes.
Anxiety is a voice that is very similar to the voice of intuition, and it is fascinating learning the relationship between the two. And it's funny because it almost goes back to what we were first talking about, which one might seem like which one feels like the bigger risk?
Yeah.
You know, anxiety is not the voice with the bigger risk. Intuition is always the one that's got the bigger risk.
Always.
You know, and that's scary. You know, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And not, you know, and eat cabbage is not the most terrifying thing you know, your intuition's ever said to you. But when it comes to things like that, you know, and yeah, just learning to know, because it's a listening, it's also a feeling, and over time, refining that relationship with it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I think kind of something I want to like make sure that we actually like hit on during this
let's
is,
go that. Let's go a direction.
So the transition from like working in the music space to now doing like kind of more work in the sound healing space. This kind of ties everything together with that like intuitive voice, feeling that nature internal thing. How have you kind of been able to blend those two worlds and like make something unique?
Yeah, you mean blend the world of the past with the world of the now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny. It's not so funny. I don't know. It's like always
Everything's
easy
funny.
way. It's so funny. Life is hilarious. Yes. I mean, it is comedy and tragedy, baby. We're out here.
I want to put up a brick wall in my house and a spotlight so that I can just like intro every story with like the Seinfeld opening. Just like,
it's all a bit.
So you're not going to believe what.
Yeah, it's all a bit. It's always been a bit. I have had a very interesting life. I have had a lot of different professional moments and moments just in my life and hobbies, et cetera, that have all kind of, become this amalgam of, and it's what I do now, going from the creative space historically, my very first band was with my brother, and we were an ambient band.
Nice.
And I have always loved ambient music. In this band with my brother, we were called Collected Fictions. Nice. I literally would sit at the keyboard and I would hold down one chord for like 5 minutes, So it'd just be like, and I'd just be sitting there, and he would be just making crazy noise and like tons of delay pedal stuff all on his guitar,
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. He'd take a screwdriver and just be scraping on it. We were like 12 and 15, like we were very young, homeschool.
Love it.
And I listened to a lot of experimental electronic stuff, and we already had recording software, and we were already recording like, tapes and burning CDs of like our stuff. And I've always just loved composition, ambient music, instrumental music, et cetera. And then I had a band for 7, 8 years. That was like an ambient kind of post-rock meditation prayer band kind of thing.
So there's like a history to this whole thing.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, 100%. I have yes, yeah. Oh, it's my favorite. And then, going through this whole process of really just turning my life completely upside down, with what I ran into in my mid-20s with drinking.
Yeah.
And it gave birth to a whole new story. And that story was not perfect at all. It definitely, it had so many components of the past, like creatively, professionally, et cetera. But just approached everything differently. There were, I would make it like 2 years, start drinking again, drink for a few months, quit again, make it 6 months, drink for a few months, quit drinking, and it's just on and off. I'm now at just over 3 years. Wow. Again,
that's amazing.
This time around, which is great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Anyway, so coming into where I was now, I went to my first sound bath, oh gosh, a long time ago. And it was just singing bowls, a lot of sound baths that you'll find in the West. I was in California, of course, of all places. It was just singing bowls, and I'm in there, and I just have this profound experience. It was very deep, and I was like, oh yes. And also, I was like, oh, this is what I do when I listen to a lot of ambient music. I go in really deep. It's a space of meditation. Some people, like I go on wild journeys, or I get like like a sense of getting deep sleep.
Yeah,
it's like really, really powerful. And I went to that sound bath, and I just, afterwards, I was like, people don't talk about the kind of acoustic instrument aspect of singing bowls a lot. They'll get into more of the energetic aspect. And I totally, I could go down both of those routes talking about it. But from like an acoustic instrument perspective, I was like, you could put anything over these. You could play piano over this. You could play violin over this. You could sing over this, all in this ambient context. That was my world of some of my favorite music. I was like, oh my gosh, this is an ambient instrument,
Yes.
And a few years later, I am hanging out with a friend, and this was years before I started doing sound baths. And we just like, the first time we met, we're just sitting there, we're like, we should do sound healing together. Sure enough, like 3 years later, we kind of circled back around in life and just got super into sound healing at the same time. And I was like, this is why when we met 3 years ago, we randomly said, let's start doing sound healing. It was like a premonition, kind of thing.
Activating prior knowledge.
Yeah, totally. I was like, whoa. And I went through so talking about that kind of shift in 2015, 2016 of getting sober. I kind of came to another point in my life in 2021. And it was a hard reset. It was a hard reset coming out of COVID. COVID hit me really hard, unfortunately. And coming out of that, I was in a very blank slate place, which was very similar to kind of the approach that I had to take when I got sober. It was very blank slate. I had to this is going to sound dark, but I had to let all my like dreams die. I had to let all my hopes, not my hope, but like I had to let my dreams die. I had to let my goals change, or disappear. I had to drop all expectations that involved the future in order to get sober.
100%.
So
a lot of that is dictated by who you were in that moment.
Totally.
And so you can't continue going on that path if you're trying to let that person fade into the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's those goals and those things are like the horses that is pulling your cart. And you just got to cut those horses and let them go wild and just be like, 100%. You're gone. I need new horses, I've got, or they're, let's ride an elephant. Who knows what it looks like? All I know is I have to let go of what's been dragging me in that direction, 100%. And so I found myself in another place in 2021 where I was like, okay, hard reset, coming out of COVID, just lots of life change, changing jobs, etc., relationship. And I was doing these full moon ceremonies with friends, and was getting deep into doing sound journey stuff. And I had been doing it for a little while, but actually I had started doing in probably late 2016, doing a lot of sound-based meditations that would, it sounds a little, it's funny going from talking about like, hey, get in the sauna, take care of your body, to being like, I put on these sounds and all of a sudden I would find myself in a completely different dimension, but it was that sort of experience, and what's fascinating is I have so many stories about how these experiences I would have during these meditations would all of a sudden impact my reality, like that day, where there would be a sign that would come through. Like I was recently doing one where, this is just a fun little story. I was doing one, and this little, I'm in this beautiful space. I'm talking poetically to this giant celestial body about how beautiful it is. And all of a sudden this little being kind of appears and it hands me a gold key. And it was like, this is me summarizing it.
Yeah.
It hands me a gold key. I was like, so sweet. So thank you. I was like, this is a gold key to unlock a golden heart. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. So I'm like, oh, this is so wonderful. So I go and boom, I have a sound bath later. I do the sound bath. I walk outside of the sound bath, and there on the ground is this decorative gold key just sitting right there. And it was just right there on the floor. Now, there's another part of the story where I have an 8-ball in my room that like you shake and ask questions. And for some reason, that whole, like the day before, I'd been looking at it all day, just like, I've never really noticed that I have this 8-ball here. And I was like, oh, that's so weird. There's an 8-ball right there. There's an 8-ball right there. That's so weird. And then next to this gold key that I found on the ground was a little 8-ball pendant. And I was like, yo.
What is going on?
Some people that are watching this are probably like, that's demonic, or like, that's, that's evil. And it's like, no, it's just,
Wait,
It's
so
just the
but
universe talking.
what's this golden key go to?
Oh, it was like a necklace, like decorative golden key that you can wear as a necklace, which is funny because the thing that this thing gave me in the meditation was a gold key that went on a necklace that I wore around my neck. The whole thing's hilarious.
Great.
So anyways, I will do these sound journeys, go to a space, and then sometimes something will happen in reality where I'm like, that's wild. So anyways, I had been doing that for a few years, and then life does its thing, blah, 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 blah. And I had just started to slow way down and like bring engagements into my life that helped me anchor, because it's funny because people talk about healing frequencies. So when people talk about healing frequencies, I always make the joke that like, well, exercising every day is a healing frequency because it's a frequency. It's how frequently are you doing something? What is the rate at which something is recurring, and it's like, if something is not recurring consistently in your life, it's chaos. It's just a one-time thing. It's a beautiful little shooting star. But if you can create something that has a consistent recurrence, if you were to listen, if this was an audible sound, it would be a tone. Boop. You know what you can do on a tone? You can build harmony over it, baby. And you can create other consistent things with that, or you can play a sweet melody over something consistent. So I needed consistency in my life. So I brought consistency into my life I started playing piano every other Sunday at a spa here in town. I was just like, can I just show up and just play piano in your lobby, And I was sitting there just playing, piano, and usually nobody was listening. The people at the front would be like, this sounds really nice. And it's actually where I met Amy, who started doing sound baths with me.
Amazing. Okay. That's awesome.
So I brought in some consistent, a healing frequency, if you will. I brought a healing frequency into my life by just saying, once every other Sunday, I'm going to go play at the spa, while I kind of recover, and I was doing freelance at this point in time, all that stuff. But, and then a friend of mine, said, what would you do in this event space? And I was like, oh, I would do one of my full moon, like sound journeys, but I would, do it as I would as a composer and as a person who is a lover of ritual and ceremony in my own life, and I have this deep spiritual life and all of this stuff, but I'm not going to impose any of that on anybody. I'm just going to create this container, and this experience. Because also adjacent to all of this, for a few years, I ran a poetry publishing company, and we would do these very immersive poetry festivals that were, awesome. Very pop-up, very, very happening. It was really, really fun. So I essentially brought everything from my bedroom for the first one. I was like, here's some LED lights that I have in my room. Here's all my instruments. I brought my piano, had some singing bowls, and, we tuned everything together, got some wind chimes, and I was thinking about it very musical. I'm like, okay, so, the wind chimes are 440 hertz and F major, so we can play piano with that. And the singing bowls are detuned to 432 and this, so we can have, an ambient synthesizer doing this, but we're going to have bird sounds come in and just compose this whole journey, And we did the first one, and it was just a room of 65 people, the whole room full of people. It was unbelievable. And just from that, so that being said, I took my history of music composition and my relationship and love of all of that, my love of my spiritual life, my love of immersive performance, but also one thing that I haven't touched on in any of this is how much I love people. Like, I love people so much. I wish I could live thousands of lives to just be a fly on the wall for every person there is, because I'm so deeply fascinated by just the unique qualities of everybody. We're talking about intuition, the voice of intuition goes deep, is so much deeper than just what we need to eat, but it speaks of what we love and what we crave in so many ways. And I'm so fascinated by what people love, what people crave, do you know what sympathetic resonance is?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So in this, we have, as people, also have sympathetic resonance, and some people will resonate deeply in something that is harmful. So with me and my drinking buddies, it was around drinking and self-loathing, but we had
for the
resonance.
audience at home, can you explain what sympathetic resonance is?
Yeah. So it's two things that essentially have a gosh, it's a resonant quality that is the same. They have the same resonant quality. So you would, if you have two singing bowls that are both, 440 hertz, and you start playing one, the other one's going to ring. It's the law that allows opera singers to break wine glasses. They'll tap it, they'll hear the note, and they'll be like, oh, the wine glass goes ding. So they sing ting, they sing that note, and it makes the glass vibrate until it shatters. So that is a sympathetic resonance. So people have a sympathetic resonance. This is when people say like, oh yeah, that resonates with me. It's like, you're using that language because you quite literally are resonating with that.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we always, the campaign I was on last year, we always joked the whole campaign ran on vibes, but it was like, the reality is like, if vibes are off, that's literally how you have that moment of like not feeling that connection with someone. If you don't resonate or vibrate at that frequency, you're going to always have conflict.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, what voice is going to tell you that?
Exactly.
Your gut, your intuition, all that. Tap in, listen, and be honest. Honesty is so key. Honesty and humility. Being like, I'm not going to be stuck in any way. I need to be open to what this voice has to say to me, even if it's something I don't want to hear.
100%.
Because if it's saying the next step is hard, you're going to be like, oh, well, I'll never get past that step then. It's like, oh man, life's full of hard steps. The journey, the path, always hard steps. But it's, anyway, sorry. It's going down.
Of course.
But yeah, so, this, sympathetic resonance. I forget where we were before.
Time back into the sound baths and like creating that experience. Now you're doing these sound baths with like background as like a composer and coming at it with this music experience and people.
I was talking about how much I love people. Yeah. I love people. I love seeing what their resonance is, essentially just being like, oh my gosh. 'Cause I like one of my favorite questions to like test like the water or like the ingredients is I love asking people like, what's your favorite movie? It's something like, just all these things. I just love. Some people laugh at, they think it's small talk. Oh shoot. Sorry. They think it's small talk. They're like, oh, why are you asking me like, what's my favorite food? What's my favorite color? What is my favorite season? It's like, oh, but these speak abundance about the way you feel.
Oh, 100%
in your life, and just, what excites you, what's going to activate you,
So what's your favorite movie?
Oh my gosh. My favorite movie is a movie called The Holy Mountain. Okay. It is by Alejandro Jodorowsky, Jodorowsky. Everybody says it differently. Dude, this movie's wild. It is wild. And the first time I saw it, I was like, I felt like I was being seen for the first time. I was like, this is the exact type of story I would want to tell, involving the same exact type of character archetypes I would want there to be. But it was so realized. It was so realized, so beyond me. This was coming from, it felt like I was like, oh, I feel like there's a mind out there that I can look to now, because I always just kind of wander around and be like, I don't fully resonate with this, fully resonate with that. I was just, at the point in time when I saw The Holy Mountain, I was like, wow, this guy's brain and his everything. And then I started reading his books. I started watching his other films. I was like, whoa.
That moment when you see someone that can see you is hugely profound, because it's really hard to, like, especially if you're having a hard time trusting your gut or your intuition in any way, shape, or form, it's hard to see yourself in the world.
Yeah.
If
totally
no one, if nothing you see you can relate to, if you don't resonate with anything, then it's hard to have that intuition that what you're doing is the right thing. But then as soon as you have that moment and you're like, oh, actually, like, I feel everything here, that's wildly profound. Yeah,
absolutely. And oh my gosh, that can be a painful experience when you're like, I don't see myself anywhere, but that's where patience comes in, and also keep going, don't compromise, but also it gives you the opportunity to learn to love other things.
100%.
You know, and it obviously not saying like put yourself in a harmful environment. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying like if you have old judgments that might actually be what's stopping you from seeing yourself in something, and be like if 10 years ago you were like, I hate eating, you know, green beans.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, when was the last time you had a green bean? It's like, yo, I haven't had one for 15 years or whatever, you know, and be like, try one now. You've changed.
Yeah.
You might like it.
Yeah.
Maybe try it with some, you know, some seasoning like this.
Do you not like them because your grandma boiled them in water?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's
or
like,
do you not like them because like you just don't like green beans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's huge.
I love provoking and pushing people into like, they're like, I don't know what to do in life. I'm like, go revisit everything you've judged. Yeah. Like go revisit that stuff with new eyes and with open arms and just say, you know what? And then be like, find out if you still hate it.
Oh yeah. 100%.
You know?
Yeah.
And be like, oh yeah. Oh, actually, you know, I kind of like this now, you know? What's your favorite movie?
Ooh, very easy one. Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, so
classic,
good, man.
Classic. Been my favorite movie. I honestly, since I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
I weirdly like, I don't know how I picked up on it that quickly.
Yeah.
And then like have just kept it. And it's like every year, like I usually watch it once a year right around Halloween.
Yeah.
And it's like I pick up on like these new little themes like here and there.
Uh-huh.
And ironically, a big one that really hit hard was after 2023. So I worked on presidential campaign that like got a lot of attention for what we did because it was just everything that we did was better, faster, and cheaper than everyone else in the industry.
Yeah.
And my CEO would regularly come over and be like, I just want to remind you, you're the reason that this infrastructure works the way it does. I was like, okay, great. And everyone's like, no, like we've never seen anything like this. Like keep going. I was like, okay, cool. And then as soon as like I hit that burnout moment and I left, I literally felt everything that Jack feels in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you come from like top of the world to all of a sudden you're just like, I'm back home going to my same coffee shop, reading my book,
taking
just
a poop.
like taking a shit. And now I'm like, okay, but like, what is life meaning?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't try and go steal Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's like hitting that moment of like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And like trying to embody that, and kind of like what we were talking about a little bit before this is I stepped away and I was like trying to do what the next logical career progression was after everything that I did, and realizing that for me it was fulfilling to an extent because I learned a lot of skills that I desperately wanted to learn, but it wasn't the thing that I embody. And that's like getting in the dirt, setting up everything, like doing the hard work of like building everything out that's like not respected by most people in the industry.
Yeah.
And so now I'm trying to find those ways through conversations like this to get back into those repetitions and like spend the time creating the things.
Get the reps in.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
build
that's
that,
my kind of moment.
that frequency. Oh, dude, I love that. I love the way that all of that just tied in with your love of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
That's
it's
awesome.
Literally, I don't have my keys on me, but
Yeah.
literally my key is Jack Skellington. And when I had it, I had one of those little rubber rings, and it was Jack Skellington as well.
Yeah.
It's literally just like kind of a low level theme throughout everything in my life.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. I love having characters, you know, that you could, like we're talking about, that you can see yourself in, you know, that you can kind of consistently revisit, and you can go to their world sometimes, and, you know, and feel accompaniment and the familiarity. It's so nice.
One of the people that I like worked with a number of years ago, and like I've been following their work, they talk about story and the idea that we use fiction to be able to communicate real life things that we need to teach kids or adults or whoever.
Yeah.
And like having that fictional escapism to be able to go into and be able to process your issues that you're trying to get through is honestly, like, for me, I've been drawn to documentary and podcasting and conversations with other people, because similarly to you, I fucking love just getting to sit and talk with people.
Absolutely.
I could talk to a brick wall all day, but like, you know,
yeah.
But having those moments and like realizing the importance and the impact of fictional storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It's like kind of getting me to like come full circle on this, and maybe over the next few years start diving into that fictional narrative world.
Yeah.
Because I also want to be able to have a bigger impact and kind of get people to find that intrinsic motivation, trust their gut, and like really live the life that they want.
Yeah.
I think a common theme that I feel like you've embodied, and I know everyone that I've talked with so far, we kind of are all on the same page, but nobody has to give you permission to do the things you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once you realize that, like, I mean, the biggest hurdle for me was like finally remembering to like text people and be like, hey, you want to come on my podcast this week? And then like out of nowhere, I have 6 people this week that we're recording with. So
yeah, it's awesome.
It's fun stuff.
Yeah. I used to say that on Snapchat all the time. I was like, you don't need permission, like go write a book.
Yeah.
You don't need to wait for somebody to say, hey, yeah, you can write that book. It's like, no, go write it. Do it,
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. Just go text people. I used to randomly just get online in like the MySpace days and just email brands and be like, hey, do you want me to promote your product on my MySpace? And, it's like not like anybody gave me that idea. I just was like, this might be a thing. And then I ended up with just tons of free stuff. I didn't wait for, I just was like, whatever, go for it. Try it. The worst thing that's going to happen is, whatever, it just ends up being a learning process or whatever. It's like, cool, you walk away with some experience. Anyways, feel empowered. Let the cage door open. Go. Absolutely. Yeah.
You can fly in whatever direction you want.
Totally. And I love what you're saying about wanting to use analogy and metaphor through fiction to convey, things that you are passionate about, and want to teach.
100%.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think it's like for me realizing that, I love watching documentaries, but I've realized not everyone is like deep down that rabbit hole.
Of course.
And, also like I've listened to hundreds of thousands of hours of podcasts and scientific lectures and all those things. Mm-hmm. But not everyone absorbs information that way. Of
course.
And so if, you kind of want to meet people where they're at and like get them in that like moment.
Yeah.
I am excited over the next few years to kind of see what comes out of it and where we end up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be super cool. And I mean, I totally learning to speak the language of who's listening it's just such a big part of communication, know? I mean, and it's one of my favorite things about what I do now, because I'm taking sound, so many different contexts. We're doing it in rehabilitation centers, all the way to like professional sports teams, to doing it for, people that want to gather on the full moon.
Yeah.
Versus, doing it, at a rec center, for a community. And it's just like, we're showing up and doing it for kids. It's the cutest thing in the world.
That's adorable.
But I'm not going to show up and speak the same language to all of these different people because they don't speak the same language.
Yes.
But at this, there is, it'd be like showing up with a cake and being like, all right, these people that are farmers, I'm going to talk to them about the eggs and the wheat that's in my cake. Then there's people over here that love art and be like, there's a huge opportunity for decoration and to look at all these beautiful colors, Then there's people that are into shapes and you show up and they're like, look at this circle. Guess what? It can also be a square or a rectangle. It can actually be any shape you want, And it's just like, it's just, and they're all going to take a bite and say, that's delicious. And I loved it. Thank you. But if I just showed up, they wouldn't want to try the cake.
You're like, actually, so this is cake. It's delicious. And I think you're going to love it. And
they're
going to go, really?
Like, what's cake? They're going to say, what's that? If it's just, and showing up with something like a sound bath, they're like, they've either heard of it or they have no idea what it is. Or some people have done one. And it's funny because hosting events where people come to sound baths, a lot of the people that come are either just like, they're one of those. You're like, I've done one before and I'm here, or I do them regularly, or I've heard about one and this is my first one. Showing up in a corporate environment to do a sound bath, most people don't. They're not meditating. They don't do yoga. They don't, and I just use these things because they're kind of adjacent in that kind of holistic wellness kind of category that sound baths fall into. They'll be like sound bath, and they always make jokes like, "Do I have to keep my clothes on? Should I bring a rubber ducky?" And I'm like, please keep your clothes on. Yes, you do need a rubber ducky, and clothes got to come off. Yes, no. And I'm just like, no, like, please keep your clothes on. You don't. If you want to bring a rubber ducky, you can join in the sound bath. Just squeeze it. When I point at you, just be like, all right, squeeze the ducky. It's all part of the experience.
Yeah.
So. It's been so fun because, again, just loving people and showing up and just being like, this is a moment of rest for you, and then afterwards they stop joking and then they get up and they go, can you come back tomorrow? And it's like, I would love to. Tell your boss.
Tell your boss. Give us
a thumbs up in your HR, message. So
I love it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I feel like we have covered quite a gamut of things.
Yeah. How long have we been talking?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I just kind of I've been trying to hit like an hour, and I'm trying to be more intuitive about the time and not paying too close of attention. But
totally.
Yeah, I feel like we did pretty good today.
Cool.
And super excited. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Look forward to hopefully doing this again sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jesse, by the way. Hey.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.
Yes. Bye, everybody. See ya. Yes, sir.